It was a moment in my office where I could hear the clock ticking away the seconds of my life. And by now I'm a mom and I'm providing for my family, but I'm miserable. And as I was hearing the clock tick one day, I suddenly remembered that moment in the grocery store. And I was like, oh my God, I set it up then. I decided I could never take care of myself and my family. And that was the day that I quit and started my company.
I'm Melanie Barr. Welcome back to the She Built It podcast, your go-to place to empower you to live the life and business that you crave. I'm here to talk about everything from having the courage to make life and career leaps to the details of how to lead effectively, create successful teams, implement strategies for growth, and infuse tech innovation. I'm here to celebrate your wins and navigate through your challenges. I live in the city now, but I grew up in a town of 1,000 people. I've navigated major life leaps, a senior level corporate career, worked in professional sports, and now as a successful entrepreneur who loves business, technology, family, and making meaningful connections with you and the She Built It community. I also love a good workout and dose of self-care. Magic happens when we focus on the part of ourselves and our business that brings us joy. So turn up the audio, open your favorite notes app, grab your favorite drink, and here we go. Welcome back to the She Built It podcast. Thank you for joining us, Sarah. Share with us your journey to becoming a business mentor and what inspired you to focus on helping women start and grow businesses.
It started when I was really young and I wanted to dance. It was something I always wanted to do. And I was raised in a little tiny town outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. So lucky me, there wasn't much else to do but dance or get in trouble. So I danced. And when I finally made the high school dance team, which was my lifelong goal at the time, I got the letter that talks about how much the dance costumes are going to cost, as shoes and the jacket and all the stuff. And I was so heartbroken because we were so poor. When I say we were so poor, I was raised by a single mom with my younger half brother. And there were times we would have half a loaf of bread and a jar of honey in the fridge at the end. Not ketchup, not much. That was it. And that would happen often. And so I knew we couldn't afford these costumes. So I went and got a job at the mall, worked at a little cart, and I got my little paycheck. And I was so excited because it was enough for the deposit. And so my mom took me to the grocery store where they had like a service desk kiosk where I could cash the check. Back then when people actually served people, it was so nice. So I go and I get my check cashed. And as I'm doing that, my mom says, "Hey, Sarah, the strawberries are on sale. Can we get some?" And I'm like, yes, I'm thinking of the strawberries. I'm thinking of my costume. We can do both. So I'm getting the check cash. She goes to get the strawberries. And then I go to the express checkout lane to find her and she's not there. And I'm looking up and down all the different aisles. And finally, I see her in line with a cart full of groceries. And it's filled with my brother's favorite lunch meats and some bread for his lunches, his favorite breakfast cereal, some milk, and the strawberries. And I know she can't pay for these groceries. So I'm standing there thinking I can pay for something I've wanted since I was little, which is being on this dance team, or I can buy food for my family, but I can't do both. And in that moment, I decided I'd never, ever be able to take care of myself and my family. I would always have to choose. Cut to, after that day, I am the only woman, I have 65 cousins. I'm the only woman who graduated from college in my family. And I moved to New York City because you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Good for
I have
you.
this huge corporate career. Thank you. And I have this awesome team and this great glass office and all this stuff. And I hate my life. I'm like so miserable. There's a Sarah-shaped hole in the wall where I ran away, right? Like I hated it. And it was a moment in my office where I could hear the clock ticking away the seconds of my life. And by now I'm a mom and I'm providing for my family, but I'm miserable. And as I was hearing the clock tick one day, I suddenly remembered that moment in the grocery store. And I was like, oh my God, I set it up then. I decided I could never take care of myself and my family. And that was the day that I quit and started my company. And I did that because, one, I never wanted anyone to feel the way my mother felt that day or the way I felt that day in the grocery store. And as I continued to grow my career, I was always the only woman in the room. And I didn't understand why. This is fourth grade math. Nothing here is that hard. Why am I the only woman in this room? We're talking about work ethic, work environment, and the company culture, and we're doing financial projections. Why is no one else in here with me? And so in that moment, as the clock was ticking and I ran away, I decided to help as many women as I could make as much money as possible, because when women have money, we do awesome things. Case in point, that day, everybody always says, okay, but what did you do? Did you buy the groceries or did you pay for your costume? And I paid for the groceries. This part makes me cry sometimes. But then another woman in my neighborhood heard what had happened and she paid for my costumes. And that's what women do with money. And it was so cool. In 2019, I went back to Salt Lake to host an event. And people know this is my grocery store story. And I got to bring her up on stage with me and say, this is the woman who paid for my costumes, or I probably wouldn't be here today. God knows what would have happened. And I got to thank her publicly. And that was so meaningful because she passed away in 2020. And that just solidified for me how important it is that we as women, one, thank each other, lift each other up as much as we can, but also make sure we're all making money. And it's time for women to have the most powerful tool in our hands as well, so that we can start to not only fix some of the problems, but really create things that are powerful and beautiful for each other.
Such a powerful story. And much like your story, I worked for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I remember looking around, and in a boardroom of 30 people, there were probably 2 women actually at the table. And then going through COVID, so many women had to take care of families. So I love how you are supporting and teaching women how to do this, because we can. It might be challenging at times, and we're going to go through different seasons, and some seasons might be harder than others, but there's no reason why we can't.
I actually think we're excellent at it. Like, we are really good at it. It's part of our ability to multitask so well and so naturally. We're really good at it.
You speak at conferences worldwide. What are some of the key messages that you aim to convey when you speak to larger audiences?
Oh, there's 2 that I really love. So one is, I say this and everybody always goes, that's me. And I'm like, I haven't defined it yet. But that is, I'd love to talk about high functioning codependence in women. And what this is, what we were just talking about. If you were born into a female body, we have more connective tissue between our right and left hemispheres in our brain. If you're born into a male body, there's less connective tissue. And what this leads to is traditional men, right? Their ability to just focus in on something. I always joke with people, I have lots of brothers, right? So I know this well. If they're watching TV and you're like, dude, can you help me over there? They're like, but I'm watching TV, right? And can't do anything but that one thing. And they're not trying to be obstinate. Their brain's wired that way to stay focused on one thing. And our extra connective tissue allows us to do things like pick up the phone and be like, yeah, did you take the chicken out of the oven? No, I don't want to have that meeting then. Did you respond to those guys about that thing? Yeah. Hey, no, I'll be there at 6. And we can do this and it just falls out of us. And so we can overfunction and we're very high functioning. But what happens is we function for everyone else. And this high functioning piece gets turned on its head a little bit. And I think Glennon Doyle just spoke about this so beautifully in Untamed. That book is just awesome. Where's little girls, it's, oh, where's my smile? Don't cry. Where's my pretty girl? Those kinds of messages that we get, what's under that is your emotions are bothering me. Can you please stop having them? And so we pick that up real quick and we start to learn the more selfless, meaning we have no self, the more selfless we are, the more we're rewarded. Oh my God, she's so selfless. She's killing it. She's always got it all together, even though she's falling apart on the inside. And so that's where that codependence piece comes in, as we start to get rewarded for the overfunctioning, because we can, it comes naturally at first, and then we start to suffer, but we're supposed to keep going because that's what gets rewarded. And so working with each other as women to untangle that and start to look at, no, I'm allowed to have my feelings. Thank you, Taylor Swift. I'm allowed to have my feelings. I'm allowed to talk about this. And no, I won't be doing that just because I can. And starting to let other people support in daily life. So that's one of my favorite topics. And then the other thing I'd love to talk about is the skill of influence. And that I've really learned through my 15 years of running this business that influence is a skill. We think it's a talent. We think it's something people are just born with and they can just do. And I'm not talking about the influencer industry. I'm talking about the power of influence, getting your children to pick their socks up off the floor, having other people help inside the business. When you stop and say, guys, we need to have a company check-in, everybody does, and they listen to what you say. That kind of day-to-day influence, it's actually a skill. And I love breaking down, there's 7 individual pieces of influence and how you can develop each one on a daily basis to really become an amazing human, which is at the key of all influences, that you're someone people can trust and believe and you're present with people. and then how you can practice that on the daily to continue to influence more of your team to become even more influential themselves. So it's this beautiful compounding interest that can happen.
That's so true. And it's interesting because when my twins were born, I joke that I had pretty good multitasking skills in the beginning, but they took them to an entirely new level, and how I see that transpire into business every day because you're leading so many things at that point.
So true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah, it is. And you're so right about being able to multitask all those things, but also bring it back to a business and a company culture to be able to bring people together and say, what do we need to do to execute? What do we need to do to move forward? And it's interesting because I haven't really thought about influence in that way, but it's so true.
And people get super excited when I'm like, by the way, you can learn this and hone this. This is something you can practice. You aren't just born with it. I do think we get nervous. Oh, that's so easy for Melanie. She just gets on the camera and talks. It's so easy for her. But it's so much deeper than that.
And it's a skill you learn. And it's something that you get better at over time.
100%.
In your experience, what are some of the most common challenges women face when starting their own businesses? And how do you help them overcome these obstacles?
This one comes down to self-trust. There's no other answer, I don't think. And it stems from that high functioning codependence piece, this idea that we are really trained. And I'm not saying there's a big bad training people, but through our culture, through ideas, through conversations, through examples, what we see, it becomes very clear that what we need is not as important as what other people need. And once a woman becomes a mother, once any human becomes a mother, that just is on steroids. But it's
I was just thinking. It just becomes very obvious at that moment. Not that you always have to carry that with you, but especially when they're little.
But then it doesn't stop when it is intended to, where we go back to the tribal setting of all of us contributing to each other and supporting each other, especially inside the house. And so healing all of this self-betrayal that's happened over to, I'll take the 15th beating today, even though I'm about to drop dead and I think I have COVID. Like all those different extremes that we do. And we so have to love each other up and give so much compassion and support to each other to be like, no, you don't want to walk down the street. Let's go, girl. I got you. Let's go this way. And trusting each other when that happens. And also being there for each other. Go, no, I heard you. I heard you say you don't want to do that. Let's not do it. And really being there because we don't hear that from other people. We hear thanks. Good. Oh, you're such a champ. You're such a team player. Oh God, you're so selfless. Oh, you're so amazing. As opposed to, she said no. And like I said, there's a huge swath there. And so it sounds extreme, but I want to highlight the extremes because I think that's how far it can go because of how other people have treated us. Not our fault in any way, shape, or form, but we need to be there to support each other. So when I sit down with someone and they're like, my business isn't working, what's not happening? I'm like, what do you want to be doing? And sure enough, what will fall out of her mouth immediately is this beautiful project she had, or like this passion signature offer she wants to be known for. Yeah, my team didn't think it would work, or I don't know, my husband didn't like it, or whatever, all those different things. And it's like that. I so get that. And it's so great. You have a board of advisors. And what do you want? It can take us a really long time. And that's what I mean by healing that, because it's been taken from us from such a young age. And it's, oh my gosh, how can we just love each other up to heal that? So that we can go, oh no, this is what I want to do. I totally heard you. You don't think it's going to work. I want to find out. And you don't have to be a jerk about it. You never have to be obstinate or combative, but always knowing that if it came from us, it is so worthwhile to pursue because no one else will do it the way you do it. And so healing that self-trust, the second we do that, I watch people's revenue shoot up. I watch the team grow. I watch the social media explode. Whatever it is they actually wanted to have happen starts happening because they start being true to themselves. And it is so much deeper than love yourself. It's so much deeper than that. It's every single time you shoved that quiet voice to the side. In any of those, the thousands of different situations I just covered, anytime we do that, it's like another nick of, oh, you don't trust yourself. Oh, yeah, I'm not trustworthy. Yeah, no, I don't know what I'm doing. So we really want to work on healing that.
It's so true. And trusting your instincts and going with your gut is such a muscle. And the first time you do it, you think, ooh, okay, that felt good and that worked. So I think I'll do it again. But you got to keep trying. You got to take that leap in the beginning and trust your instinct the first time in order to build on that.
100%.
You're known for your weekly Coffee with Coach, streaming video conversations. Can you tell us more about these sessions and what kind of impact have they had on your community?
Oh my gosh, this was like the craziest thing. I don't know, Melanie, do you ever have those ideas in business and you're like, who said that? Am I crazy? Like you had to have that moment of really? I sent out an email that the title was, Can I Crash Your Staycation? And what I said was, I'm going to go live. I'm going to set you up for success every single day. And I started them to be 15 minutes of a reminder of my morning process, which is just a series of questions. Who needs me at my best today? How do you reach out to the people who need you the most? How can you be of the highest level of service? Are there any messes you need to clean up? Those sorts of things that I just wanted to support people in doing on a daily. So it didn't turn into one long Saturday where you were like, what?
Every day is a Saturday.
Every day. Those TikToks were entertaining though. But yes, so all of that stuff, that's how it started. And I went live every single day. It started at 15 minutes. By the time we hit the end of March, it was an hour long because people were asking me live coaching questions. And I had this really strong inclination, again, listening to self-trust of no, keep doing this. And I was like, I'm giving away an hour of coaching every day. So just keep going. I was like, okay. And different people started to show up. And one day I accidentally was streaming to the wrong Facebook page. So it went to my personal Facebook page. And all of my high school friends, all the guys I dated before, like all these people, I'm like, how are they on here? I was like, what's going on? But that specific day was so helpful for everyone that showed up. And that was probably in May, but for 4 months, I went live every single day, every weekday. I pulled it back and I was like, I think we need to put this on YouTube. And so we changed it. I stopped doing it every day and just started putting it up and let anybody come with anything they need. It's morphed since then to I'm really teaching. I'll teach a concept, I'll teach something, and then I'll coach people live as they need.
What advice would you give to women who are just starting out in their entrepreneurial journey, especially those who may feel overwhelmed and uncertain about the path ahead?
I will say data. She just did this with the coaching client today. She's nothing's working. I'm like, wow. Can we break that down for a hot second? What do you mean? Everybody's canceling. And I'm like, who's everybody? And it turned out to be one person, right? But it feels that way when you're in it. And I think one of the most important things we can do, and this is another thing women are so naturally good at, is just sitting down and saying, okay, let's actually look at what happened. And I love doing this in the digital space right now. Launches are just getting hammered. The 2021, 2022, let me launch a course thing is so dead compared to the way it was. We'll reinvent it. We'll all come back. That's fine. But people are working twice as hard now to produce half the amount of the result. That can be really discouraging, right? Especially if you're just starting out, you're like, well, I thought I was going to make $1 million from a ball of twine in the beach every tip.
That's what Instagram says. There is a real need for courses still. Absolutely. But then some that's, I made $5 million in 1 week. You're like, did you really?
Did you though? Yeah. And the other thing too, for someone just starting out, I really want to warn you, that's probably true that they made that much, but they might have spent 6 in order to make the 5. And so you've got to understand that, like, you really want to get down to data. And that's why I'm saying it's your best friend. So in those moments when you feel overwhelmed or you're like, oh my gosh, what happened, is that there's so many just easy steps to look at. How were the open rates? How were the click-through rates? How did the sales page do? What were those conversion rates? You can find where it broke down. And then you go, great, now I know where to work next time. And then you try it again. In this Insta society that we live in, I don't just mean Instagram. It can be really challenging to find that grit and to find, again, the self-trust and the patience to actually build things the way they were meant to be built, which is you have to start. Right. I was just working with another client who's launching a jewelry company. She's, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. I go, every person that you love started at this point. Nobody didn't go through this. Even if they inherited the business, they had to learn what you're learning right now. There's no shortcut to that.
So true. You have to be in it. You have to be in it and learn it, and then you can pass it out.
That's exactly right.
Pass it on to the team.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just to not be afraid to start. Who do you think is going to do a better job? Someone who researches a camera for 9 months or someone who flips on their phone and starts talking? You got to get in it to learn. So just don't be afraid to be seen starting small. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and trust yourself as you continue on that journey. That is your biggest asset, is your own instincts, and healing that as fast as you can so you know you can trust yourself.
Magic happens when we focus on the part of our business and ourself that brings us joy. We've talked a lot about business today, but what is one thing that you make sure to do to find and live your joy?
Outside. It's hard. I live in a climate where there's snow half the year, but to get outside. The other thing I love, my father was a lawyer for the Screenwriters Guild for a really long time, and my stepmother was a screenwriter. So I have fallen in love with dialogue since I was very little. So I either get outside or I watch something very witty where I know a human being actually wrote that dialogue, I get so stinking excited. It just makes me so happy.
Yeah, we have to have humor in our life. I'll go through the times on Netflix where I watch something really heavy and then you're like, okay, time for something light and funny.
Yeah. Videos, hurry. Yeah.
Exactly.
So true.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. So you've left us with so much to think about to help us grow in our lives and in our business. Can you please tell us how and where we can find you?
Yeah. Thank you for asking, by the way. So you can come on over to sarahwalton.com. That's like Walton, like the family on TV, or the Walmart family, depending on how old you are. And Sarah with an H. So you can come on over and say hi. I'm also on YouTube, where you can find Coffee with Coach. And you can also find the Game On Girlfriend podcast video version there. And then come hang out with me on Instagram. It's the Sarah Walton, not because I'm the Sarah Walton, but because my name was taken.
Thank you for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at hello@shebuiltit.com, on our She Built It website, or at She Built It on social. Thank you to my editor, Rich Streffolino, who always makes us sound good. Until next time, let nothing stop you from experiencing the life and business that you crave.